welcome to this Amazon Lumberyard tutorial video. In this video we're going to make a character, animate it, bring it into Lumberyard and get it walking around. So I'm going to use a software called Adobe Fuse. You can get it from the Adobe Creative Cloud app. There is a slight problem where you have to spam click the shortcut key to get it to open, and since there's no dev team currently on Fuse, this is not going to get fixed in the foreseeable future. Once you open it, the first thing you should do is go to Edit, Preferences, and tick this to allow higher quality textures. I'd recommend using the scanned things just because, those haven't been modeled, they've actually scanned someone, so it could be more accurate. So let's just go with male scan 1. Can be a bit slow at times. Then we can go to customize, and you can basically customize every major muscle in the arms, legs. You can even change the teeth and torso, etc. The faces are fully facially rigged, so if you have any other software for that kind of stuff, you can do that. They have some things here. Now in the clothing section, they give you quite a few things to start off with, but if you want more, I'd recommend going to this website. It'll be in the description. They have other stuff, but they also have Fuse, which basically you have all these new assets that you can buy. They have sales quite often, and they're reduced quite well, so anyway, today we're just going to make a wizard, so I got these assets from that website, by the way. Once we finish making this character, we will be sending it to Mixamo, also a free service where we can add some animations to it. There are also some models on the Mixamo website, so if you choose to use one of these things instead, then I'll add in the comments section a shortcut to that bit of the video. Now in the texturing section, you can essentially pick any bit of clothing and change all of its textures. I believe they use substance textures, so that's pretty useful. Now, sole of the shoe, probably be rubber. Basic rubber, here we go. The top end, which we can't quite see, feel like that would be some sort of fabric. Maybe a velvet fabric. And then the main bit of the boot, this would probably be some sort of leather. Maybe one of these other ones. not very good at this, so I might actually load their pre-built one for the shoes. Yeah, that does look a lot better. Oh, I think they used let's just see what they chose to use. Oh, so leather-studded armor for the sole, cracked leather for the top end, which you can't see, and then oh, they did use tone leather, although I believe they probably changed some of the colors because that does not look like this toned leather. At the end, we'll make all the textures higher because we don't want to crash this by accident. Let's see if we can find one that actually looks nice. All these assets do come with their own thing. Let's just take a look at that, maybe for some inspiration there. Because I'm not very good at this step. Might have to spam click this one open. Oh, yes, we will save this for now. Here, we'll just call this wizard test. Alright, now let's see how they decided to make it. This might take a while. Let's hope it doesn't crash. Okay, here we go. Oops, I opened the mage by accident. Well, we've wasted enough time on this, so we might just go straight off with this. But I hope I have shown you some of the basics of texturing the character, etc. They added a belt as well. Just wait for this to load. So here they've chosen to use a denim fabric, then change the color to this gray, 213, 211, 209. Yeah, you can have a play around with this belt, toned leather, used metal. etc. So let's just export this, but before we do that, let's make sure all of these are at their highest possible. Sometimes you will have to make compromises and put some of them at a lower resolution, because otherwise this will crash when trying to export because the textures will be too high. Again, I don't really need to put a dev team back onto this to iron out these issues. For now, I think the belts and shoes we'll leave at 1000, but then hair, skin, and robes will set to 2k. Cloaks using the same thing there. Okay, there we go. Let's save this as a different thing. I don't know, we'll just call this Wizard Tut. Now from here, we'll click on Send to Mixamo. We'll call it Wizard Tut. Save. And this will take a while. On Mixamo, you have to sign up or sign in with your Adobe account, which is how all of this gets exported to the right account, etc. Sadly, they removed the feature to save your characters on Mixamo, so every time you want to work on a new character, it'll be deleted from their servers, the old one. This step usually takes a while, so I'll be back with you when it finishes. Better at modeling and model your own model, you can also put it through this auto rigger to rig your character. So you don't just have to use Fuse or the ones they give you on Mixamo. While this loads, make sure that your new project that you've created, so with the create new, make sure you've enabled the emotion effects gem, which is what we're going to use to animate it when we bring it in. And there are quite a few gems, but yeah, you can use the legacy one, but this is far simpler to use and it's what we're going to use today. So ticket, save, and in the command line, rebuild your project. Make sure it's set as default. And I recommend just using a profile -p game build, because when you've made the project, it'll actually do the -p all build, but it's really up to you. Okay, this looks like it's nearly done. There we go. Now you'll notice the textures look kinda bad, but that's fine. We'll fix that all later. So here you can choose to allow the facial blend shapes, which basically means that if you have software for facial animations, you can do that. And we'll just go with this one, 5 fingers on each hand. You can see the skeleton there. Let's just update that rig. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. The animations we're going to use today is just the idle animation and a walk animation, because we want to make this quick. Don't really want to waste too much time since this video is probably going to be pretty long anyway. If you choose to use one of these characters, they might have specific animations that people have made, like the people who made the model. So for instance, this mutant, if you look up mutant, oops, if you look up in the animation section mutant, you'll see that it has animations for itself and some animation packs. They also have animation packs for Fuse things that you've brought in, although they used to have a homepage for this, but they don't anymore. This is what it looks like when you're bringing in a character you've made yourself. I'll just ask you where the elbows, knees, etc. are. Oh, looks like it's going to be done. I'll just close that. Just click finish there. And yeah, you can't store characters anymore, so you do have to get rid of the old one you were going to use. Now from here you can instantly just download it, or you can animate it. So here we have our wizard tut user character. Just load in over here. Now if we go to animations, we just want a simple walking animation, so we'll look that through. Quite a few ones, some for specific characters, like there's archery packs and stuff, but we'll just go for this one. Looks okay. Let's see, can we preview that? Might have to refresh the page. Ah, there we go. This camera icon just to see him walking. That does not look very natural, so how about we try one of these ones? Or this one. Let's just wait for that to load in. Might have to refresh the page again. I'll be back when I find a suitable animation. I think this one looks suitable. It's the third one down. And make sure it's not in place, and you can customize this if you want. So make it faster, change the arm spacing. It's 32 total frames. We'll just download this. Since it's an animation, we don't need the skin. So it's 60 frames as an FBX file. Here we go. Now here we'll just make a new folder. Nope, not a shortcut. Just throw walking in there. Now let's find an idle animation. I'll be back when I find one of those. This animation looks fine, so we'll just download in here. Out skin, 60 frames, FBX. Now we want to download our character, and sadly you don't want to download it through Fuse by exporting it because it won't actually have a skeleton. So instead we'll download it from here, FBX, T-pose, download. Let's just save that file into here. However, these textures aren't very good, so actually don't do that. And these textures are just lower quality because that's how the web renderer that Mixamo uses presents them. Although, yeah, the hair might actually end up like that. But anyway, if we just close this, and now we can open Blender since we have everything installed. Just delete that and that. Ooh. Okay. We just want to delete that, and we'll save this as a blend file in case we ever want to re-export this. Also tut.blend, save it into that directory. Now we want to import the FBX. I'm just gonna quickly do that. Now Shift S just to get the cursor back to center. So you want all of these selected, so all the meshes and the armature over there selected. And then we want to rotate it 180. So just do that, change the angle to be 180. And then we want to do Control A and apply the rotation. And this will essentially make sure that when we import it, it's facing the +Y, which is what Lumberyard uses. Now we just rename this to root. And since we have these lights, we can actually just preview what the texture. Ooh, never mind. Let's preview the material maybe. Will that do anything? Okay, here we go. So you can sort of see how these materials, they aren't quite applied properly here in Blender, but that does not matter. So we just have a diffuse, normal, opacity, specular, and gloss, which is everything that Lumberyard uses. So that's good. So now what we want to do, since I'm fairly sure all of these use the same material. Good. Now we just want to click here, scroll down a bit on this texture, click on this, and click Use File from Current Directory. And what this will do is, if you look in the Textures folder, it'll make that. Now I want to do this to the normal, to the opacity, to the specular, and to the gloss. Now opacity and gloss will have to combine with our diffuse and normal textures, but we'll do that later. Now if you see, since these all have the same material, that's all been saved in the same place. Now we can Control S this, and what we want to do is export. We don't want to have everything in here export though, so just change this back to solid. Select the lamp and camera, and just delete them. And do File, Export the FBX. Let's do, File, Export FBX, name it File Tut. See if it changed. I already have done that, but let's just want to set that to Y forward, Z up, and click the plus to save this as a preset. I've named mine lumber, so you can just click there, lumber in the future, and it'll automatically apply that. Click export. I've already done that. Now we can do this for the animations. It's slightly different how you had the root. I already made a new blend for my idle. So now, hang on, let's just get you see my keys. File, import FBX, idle. Now, like last time, I want to rotate it 180 degrees. There we go. Oops. Let's just get that. Now, Control A, apply rotation. Now we've done that, and we want to click here on this armature thing. Now we want to click Shift S, cursor to center, click Add Bone. We want to click on this bone, then click here, rename it to Root, and change the tail 0 on Z and X, set the Y to 100, just to get it pointing in the right direction. Then select the hip, and Shift click on the root, and then do Control P, and keep offset. And this will essentially parent the hips to the root. Now, since this is an idle animation, this step is not really necessary, but I'm going to do it just to make sure that this all works. We want to drag that little thing that you can see in the corner across to get two things and minimize that. Then open the graph editor on this side, and you'll see a ton of lines, and we want to enter pose mode, that's why. Just click on pose to get this. Now click on Mixamo hips and hide everything except the X, Y, and Z on location. Some Mixamo animations have the Y and Z switched around for some reason, so but we don't need the X, we can hide that. Now I'm fairly sure on this animation, when we watch it, let's at the end, 1119, almost there. There we go. Now it changes more in Z than it does in Y, so I think when we hide the Z one, so here in this animation that we chose, the Y and Z have not been switched in the right direction. So just hide everything, click on that, key, copy keyframes, and here click on root. Now click N, right click here, insert keyframes, hide the Z and X, and just click on Y, and then do paste keyframes. Now we want to go back to the hips, click on this, and zoom in onto that first keyframe. Click elsewhere just so we can see it. Right click it, then press Control I just to select everything except the first one, then X and delete. Essentially, we've moved the change in Y from the hips to the root bone. And while in idle animation, this isn't much. I just like doing this because this is how you do it for everything else. Now you can just click there on that line, bring it back across. Control S. And I believe we can now just export it. File, export, FBX, wizard tut, idle, and operator preset lumber, just to apply that, and export. Now let's do the same thing with the walking animation. Now this one might be a bit more complex. Import FBX anims walking, import, file, save as, wizard tut walking .blend. Now we want to rotate this 180 degrees. And now we've rotated, Control A and apply rotation. Let me get that so you can see what I'm pressing. I want to do basically the same thing. Click armature, Shift S and cursor to center, because every time when you click add a bone, it'll add the bone to where your cursor is, so you want to make sure that's at the center. Click bone, rename this to root, Z to 0, Y to 100 for the tail. Hips, shift click on root, Control P, keep offset. Now we want to enter pose mode. It's like those. Go into that corner, drag it across, minimize this. Graph, remove these from view, except the location ones. Now, let's see if we look into the changes in, well, we don't need the change in X, I'll hide that. So now we should have a change in Y and a change in Z. But when we watch it, we see there's a very big change in Y, and it looks like the Z is moving up and down. But when we look in the graph, we can see that the Y and Z have been switched, because Y is going up and down, and Z is increasing quite a lot. That's not a problem. So we just hide the Y one, click on Z, copy that, go into our root, press N, scroll up, add a insert keyframe for location, hide the X and Z, just click on Y, paste it, and that'll be fine, because here, go back to the Z, and right click on the first keyframe, Control I, and delete. There we go. So now, let's just go back. Yes, good. So, even though the the animation we imported has Y and Z switched, our root bone does not. So now when we watch it, even though we moved that stuff, we should see it still move in that direction, just as we expected. Now let's set the end to 1 keyframe below how many there actually are. So it looks like there's about 63, so I'll set it to 62. It was 62. 61. There we go. Now click on that corner, bring that, Control S, save. So now, come here, export as an FBX, start walking, and set it to the preset lumber, and export. That's everything done on the Blender side, so now we'll just go into the texturing stuff. Now while the editor opens, we're going to copy the files that we just made into our project. Now I like to put them into the gem. Let's make a new folder for this guy. Wizard tut. Now we just want to bring in tutc, the textures folder, although Control Z, we don't want to move them, we want to copy them, just in case something goes wrong. And then we want to copy the anims, although we want to delete that and that. We only want to keep the stuff that we exported. There we go. Now hopefully the editor will open soon. Let's just see, is that actually running? Okay, there's 2. That was probably not a good idea. Should probably end one of those. I'll be back when the editor opens. Now I've just made a new level called Tuts, and this is hopefully where we'll get our character walking around. I'm not sure if we were supposed to export those textures as PNG or TIFF files. I'm not sure if Lumberyard has changed itself so that it doesn't require that. Now we don't want the motion for the FBX file. By the way, I just double clicked on that. We want to add an actor, which we'll grab from the root node.root Exama hips. We do not want to rotate our character 180 degrees. We want to update the materials. And okay, that's it for that. We also, just in case, want to add a mesh, update that, and click update. Ooh, hang on, did I rotate that mesh around? We'll see. This step should not take too long. Any day now. You can see that it's still pending, has some pending jobs, which I believe are our textures, because we set that compression very low, so the file size is quite big. So it might take a while for it to fully process those textures. There we go. Let's just see the mesh. Okay, well, I don't think we have to rotate any there. Okay, now let's go into anim folder and let's change those FBX things, these. Motion, we want to take it from the root, do not rotate, and in 1.13 there is this slight error with compressions where these are set to 0.1, which can cause some problems, so we want to set both of them to 0.0. The bottom one will show 0.0, but you'll have to actually change it because it's rounded. That's all. I'll take this one. I wonder which ones are taking longest. Oh, one left. Oh, it's an FBX. Oh, that's what we were just doing here. There we go. And then do the same for walking. Don't rotate, compression. Update. Okay, there we go. Now we can close that. Should probably set up the materials in this guy now. So we'll make a new entity over here. Call it wizard cut. And then create a child entity. Call this one camera. Normally you'd name this player, but I already have that in another level. Don't really want to have two things called player. And then create another child entity and call it wizard. Now on the camera, we want to add the component camera. And this is a gem, so when you are enabling the gems, make sure you enable the camera gems. Here we want to change the field of view to 60 degrees. And then for the wizard, we want to add an actor, which will be our wizard over here. Now let's see, it is facing the plus Y direction, so far so good. Ooh, that's a bit fast, let's set that to 0.1, and there we go. So now I want to open up this material. Nope. There we go. Oh, that is not what we wanted. There we go. Now there's this problem with textures not being reloaded. Like when you restart the editor, it'll get rid of your changes. It's a bit annoying, but we can get around that by first setting the diffuse. We want to go for the diff. That does not look good so far. Maybe we were supposed to put them as a... Anyway, as TIFF files. Anyway, now let's choose that. And then the specular. Let's choose specular. Now, fingers crossed this will work. We'll save it. And for now it should work. So, let's just move it out the way. Ooh, it kind of worked. Let's see what went wrong here. Definitely looks like the gloss map was not enabled, so we're just going to ignore those textures because I've done some experimenting off camera. I have not actually been able to get it to work, even when using Photoshop. So instead, we'll just open the animation editor. Let's open this actor. There he is. And then do file. Oops, no. There we go. Motion sets. I already made one here. I'll just delete it. We'll make a new motion set, and then we'll open up our two animations. Okay. Now that that's done, let's just play them just to make sure they're working. Double click, idle, nice. Okay, now if we go over here to Actor Manager, we just select the motion extraction node, which is root, just to get it to follow. There we go. Now we have a motion set, we just need an anim graph. So we'll make a new anim graph. Okay, we already had one. I'll just delete that one. Discard. Let's get this one. We'll make a new state machine. It's generally useful to use state machines just because it's really easy to track what is going on. And we'll call this idle state. Because when we run the script, the Lua script that we're going to make, you'll notice that in the command line, it'll tell us which state we're in. Now we can delete that, and this will just be a simple idle. Yep. And then, okay, now we just select that. Thank you. No motion set. There we go. That's why. So I'm going to set this to wizard to title and set it as the entry state for the idle state. Then we want to make another state machine, make it more or less next to, call it move state. Come in on this, delete that, and here just want to add a simple walking motion. Let's set that as the entry state. So now we can just connect them up. Now we want to make a new parameter and we'll call it speed. Create. And that is the only parameter we will need today. Well, I don't want to mess with any of that, we just want to make a parameter condition with speed. So if the parameter is above our test value, which is 0, then it will start to walk. And then on the way from moving to idle, we want to have it so if parameter is equal to 0, then go to idle. So now what we should see is it'll be idle, and when we increase the speed, the person will begin to walk. Now, let's just save, properties. Let's rename it to wizard tut anim graph, and copy that. And then do save, and we'll save it into our gem assets characters with tut anims. We'll name it the same thing. Then we want to go into motion sets, rename it to wizard tut motion set, copy that and save it to the same place. And I think that's all we need to save actually. And oh yes, we'll save this as a workspace. Okay. And this should, let's see, yes. We'll call it wizard tut workspace. There we go. Now we can get onto the entity stuff. So we want to add an anim graph, which will be, oh no, we do not want the golem one. We want the wizard. And we also want the wizard motion set. Then we want to add character physics. Yep, that looks fine. And then, let's see, we want to add a Lua script and some input bindings. Since this video is already far too long, what we're going to do is we're just going to open this and we're going to come into the samples project, animation samples simple jack, and we're going to copy the script and one more thing in the input bindings. And then we're just going to paste them into our wizard tut. And we can rename them wizard tut bindings and rename the script simple underscore wizard tut locomotion. Now we will have to make some changes to the script, but none are needed for the inputs. So we will just load in, our wizard one, and in the script we will, first off, we'll set this to Lua IDE. We want to open, let's see, it's in here, gem, assets, characters, wizard tut. Now we will have to make some changes. So for instance, do not need, well, I mean, we'll leave these as is. However, we need to remove some of these. So we do not need turn speed. Actually, this is already a pre-edited version of the script that is in the simple jack. But basically, you just want to remove everything that's not speed, nav forward, back, or the look at stuff. In fact, how about we let's open up the original sample script thing, which is what you'll be copying across this one. Let's copy that into this, and let's just do this process of removing all the stuff we don't need. So here, this is just, it kind of explains already what's happening. We do not need the look at values or the aim amount. We don't need look at or turn speed or the aim. Here we don't need look at or aim, because this stuff just essentially sets up all the animations. We do not need this this aim thing we do not need, although we do need that end. Just want to delete these two lines. That looks fine. Here, we do not need this if statement. Here we do not need this bit. Here we don't need the turn speed. We don't need this look at power. Hang on, let's make sure we don't need that. Yep. Let's just Control F. Oh no, wait, hang on. Before we do that, okay. We don't need turn speed or aim amount. Don't need this look at value or this one. And just in case we lost anything, missed anything, we'll look up turn speed, but we want to look it up from the very beginning. Let's remove that. Here we go. We want to get rid of that turn speed. Okay, good. Now let's just get rid of this, make sure we didn't miss any looks. Good, we can save this file, close this, we'll select that script, and select the camera. Now, when we Control G, it should be idle, and then begin to walk around. And then we can use the D key. Perfect. I believe we removed some code, so because normally if you're holding W and then move the camera, it will move in the forward direction of the thing, not the world. Yeah, you can see that problem here. If I'm looking sideways and press W, that is fine though. That's essentially what you're supposed to do.